Implausible Nature now has dice. That's right, you can get these awesome D6s made by our partner, Baron of Dice. These custom dice have the Implausible Nature logo on the 6 side and also come with square corners, which means they will roll more evenly than rounded corner dice. Head on over to baronofdice.com and use discount code IN40K to get a discount on your order and support us at the same time. Check out his full collection of dice for all your gaming needs with the link down in the description. Welcome to Implausible Nature, your home for all things Black Templar. On today's video, it should be no surprise that we are talking about 10th edition. GW launched this announcement, not really to the surprise of anyone at Adepticon. There was a lot of rumors about it coming, and then when they're like, hey, big announcement, we all pretty much assumed that was going to be the case, and indeed it was. So they had a really awesome cinematic trailer that we got to see. And then they talked a little bit about the rules. They even showed what a new data sheet is going to look like with the Termagant. Unfortunately, they didn't show us a Space Marine. But we're going to get at least to see an idea of that. And they talked a lot about like the rules and the streamlining of things, and a lot to digest, a lot to talk about. Um, let's get right in. I live streamed simulcasting with it, so you guys got to hear some of my initial reactions. I've had some time to simmer on that initial reactions, but we've yet to hear Bob. So Bob, why don't you take it away and start us off? What's your initial thoughts on what we saw and heard, and what GW has posted since then? They've posted a couple articles. Uh, sort of useless. All your questions answered because it only answered a few questions, and then of course they put up all of the information that was on the stream as well.
All right. So, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the simulcast. I kind of popped in every once in a while, threw a couple of comments here and there, but I wasn't watching the stream. So I watched it a little bit later the next day. So, my initial reaction is that I'm cautiously optimistic on what we're going to see. So, I love the fact that GW has come out and said that. Uh, Now, this is controversial, but I like the reset, honestly. So I think that the game is overly complicated. It has really, really gotten kind of crazy as far as that goes, as far as the rules have come. Yes, there's a lot of flavor out there with the new armies and such, but you're seeing like pages and pages and pages of stratagems. I just point to the one of the more recent codexes that have been released, the Elder Eye. You look at that book and it's just like, what do you got? Like 10 pages of stratagems? It's like, this is crazy. And you're expecting a new player to digest that book and learn how to play their army. It just was way too much. So one of the things I was really happy to hear is that not only are they resetting the game, but they're doing it in a way that supposedly, according to them, are not going to lose the flavor of the armies, and you're going to have free rules, which is huge. The free rules is critical. So I would be upset if they reset the game when, yeah, there's people on both sides of that fence. I mean, I'm okay with the reset. But if they charged you $50 for a book on top of that, then I would be upset. But they're
Yeah,
kind of giving you the rules for free.
free rules is something that I've been saying GW needs to do for a long time, because most other miniatures games out there have free rules. Uh, you know, uh, and if you want a book of those rules, like a physical book, then you pay for it. To use another pretty pretty large games example, Infinity, the rules are free online. If you want the lore and a physical copy, then you're going to pay for it. And I think that's a fine model. People are still going to buy books if the rules are free. Now, who knows if codexes are going to be free or not? That remains to be seen. They didn't say on that. Just at least this initial batch, the indexes and the and the core rules are free, which is at least a good step in the right direction. So people won't have to buy the core rules, which is an initial cost as well. But people are still going to buy books, even if the rules for the codexes end up being free. People are still going to buy them because people like physical hard copies, and especially if those rules, that's the only way to get the lore and whatnot for your army. People are still going to buy it. Like if there's the new Black Templar Codex for 10th edition that has lore and things like that, I'm still going to buy it. So it's not necessarily, that they're really going to lose out too much, but you really need to have the rules themselves need to be unambiguous, and I think free is this is one of my favorite things that they're doing. Um, However, on the flip side of that, it's still really bad feels, in my opinion, for people who are World Eaters players or Guard players that literally just got a book, especially Guard players, have waited for literally years for their book, only to have it be null and void in less than a year of playtime. So, to me, even though the rules are free, I still think that's a feels bad moment for Guard players. Um, and there's not really any getting around that other than to alter their release schedule, which is never going to happen, or to have a hiatus of a gap of where there's like releases of rules, which is also never going to happen because it's GW. Um, so um, so good and bad there. I think free rules is more good than not. so
Yep.
so yeah.
And I think that, like as you mentioned, like if there's no good time. Yes, the World Eaters and the Imperial Guard got their codex, but if you wait 6 months down the road, there's going to be another codex that they're going to be phasing out that just got released, or a year down the road, another codex that got phased. So there's no good time. Or if you take that break, then the meta stagnates. And what are you going to do to keep the game interesting at that point? So you really do have to have releases to keep that game. So whoever is going to be the latest one for the editions kind of get burnt. And there's no way of really getting around that. Fifth edition, we got one codex every like 2 years, a year maybe,
Yeah. Yep.
and so that was the only time in recent like memory that I can think of from fifth to sixth where they released a new edition where it wasn't like a huge thing because they're like we're used to not getting a codex for 2 years.
Right. And not
So
everybody got a codex for every edition, like they do now. Counterpoint, though, is I don't think the meta would necessarily stagnate because we're getting balanced data slates every quarter, and we're getting a new, mission book twice a year. So the meta wouldn't necessarily stagnate, but uh, you know, GW doesn't operate that way. They are a miniatures company first and always over a game company. So they want to sell miniatures, and the way to do that best is going to be to constantly have new releases of stuff, new books to drive excitement and hype. So yeah.
yeah, who doesn't
So
like the new shiny? Let's be honest.
I mean, yeah, we all like new shiny stuff. I mean, I really can't complain. I've said this before. I really can't complain with the treatment that we got for Black Templars for ninth edition. A host of fantastic new models. They really knocked it all out of the park. Um, so, um, so yeah, so that's kind of the initial takeaway on as far as the change of the edition. For me, you said you like the reset. Uh, I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, the game is bloated, like you said. It is very complicated, and like we understand it. A lot of the veteran players understand. Oh well, you can't. A player asks, "Can I do this thing?" No, you can't. Well, where do I find that? You got to go to the FAQ for this book that's on the website, right? Well, but why isn't it in my codex? Because it's something that happened later, but so like you got to carry around your codex, your supplement, the core rule book, the mission book. You got to have all the facts for all those things. I mean, there is
Just
a
trust us.
lot. Yeah,
You
just
can't.
trust us. Can't do that. Just trust me. Um, Trust me, bro. The internet told me so. But so there is bloat for sure. Stratagem bloat is definitely a problem. AP is definitely a problem. The game's not without its faults. So in that circumstance, this is a reset is good to do those things to fix those overarching problems that have happened over the course of an edition. Now, here's the downside for me is the last time we got indexes was 8th edition because they did a massive shift in the way the game works, most of it for good. I loved getting rid of blast templates and vehicle rules, and it was just too much stuff. Like simplifying it made it good. Made a lot of those changes were very good. However, the indexes were the most flavorless, boring things I've ever seen in my life. Of course, you had to pay for them back then, so we're already a step in the right direction. But the rules and the initial rules and the indexes were just completely flavorless. There was like no uh, nothing really setting the not like unique army rules or things like that to like really like capture the flavor of the armies that you're playing. And that's my fear with this. GW has said we are simplifying, but not simple. And taken at face value, that sounds great. However, I'm skeptical because of 8th edition. So that makes me nervous because there's there's a very fine line between we've stripped out all the excessive bloat and you have a boring, flavorless army.
And I can definitely understand that and 100% get behind that fear. But my counter argument to that is it was coming out of 7th edition, an edition that almost killed the game and the company, and they needed to burn it down to the ground and start anew.
Yeah,
Where we are coming out of a healthy, for the most part, edition, a lot of flavor and a lot of our things. Now, are they going to pare down some things and probably cut down on some of the sub factions? Hopefully, it's not Black Templars, but would they potentially and kind of start anew from that? It's possible. But the track record from GW from 8th to 9th edition is that you're not going to have to wait that long, terribly long, to get your rules. So they're willing to put out 6 codexes in a year to get you your rules.
yeah.
And I mean, we're
Well,
fortunate that we're Space Marine players, so we have it better than most. We're going to get our
eh,
rules,
I
but
mean, there's pros and cons with that. So we're Space Marines, so we're gonna get our rules first because that's what GW does is they release Space Marines first alongside somebody else. Uh, However, as is tradition, Space Marines either come out really strong and then get nerfed and then get surpassed by everyone else. Or, was the case with going into ninth edition, we got nerfed again, and then got surpassed by everyone else. For largely most of the edition, we were really bad. Necrons suffer even worse because they really didn't get anything until what about 2 or 3 data slates ago when they finally got some buffs. And then their secondaries were just way too easy to achieve, so they were winning tournaments, but it wasn't like fun. It was just let me sit back and not play the game.
yeah.
Um,
But that's one of the
so
things I like about the business model that they have now in the last couple of years. Because even from the start of ninth edition, they weren't doing balance slates. That
that's
wasn't
true.
even on their radar. And then we kind of were like, okay, tournament players, we need something to shake up. We need to fix this. So they came up with the balance data slate strategy, and it's been great, honestly. You know, 2 times a year, looking at all the games. You're another two
Four,
times
four
in the
times a
quarter,
year
so that they're the 4 times a year, and then
for
two
the
times a
slate
year for the points.
missions, the missions, yeah, the
Yep.
mission books. So, I mean, I think they're definitely more attentive to trying to keep things balanced now than at the start of ninth.
Yep.
So that's a positive thing. But what's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So that's why I'm leery of resets, and we're gonna scrap everything and start over. And I'm just worried that we're treading down that path again. Um, However, it seems like it will be much easier to fix the data slates, data sheets within a codex, because they're all free online. So, speaking of which, let's take a look at the one that they previewed, which is the Termagants. Um, it's obviously quite different looking than our what we're used to, with fat a lot of rules. You take a look here. We only retained a few stats from the typical stat line. We've got movement, toughness, armor save, wounds, leadership, and a new stat called OC. So they describe to us that OC is objective control. Basically, what it means is objective secured is gone, and this is how many models, how many points, I guess, towards controlling that objective that each model has. Um, so that's pretty cool way to do it. Instead of like, oh, I have OBSEC, oh, I don't, oh, I have, you know what I mean? Like it's a neat mechanic, I think, that is gonna make who controls an objective a little bit simpler to calculate, because you're just going to add it up, compare the number, and presumably that's it. Um, so what they've done is, as you can see with the weapons here, is they have baked in the number of attacks, the ballistic skill, the strength, the AP, and the damage. Some of those were already in the weapon skill, but things like strength is now just directly baked into the weapon. So even their melee weapon is strength 3, and their weapon skill is automatically baked in, and so is the attacks, which is pretty cool. I actually really like the data sheet set up this way, because you can do a lot more interesting things, especially with melee weapons. So ranged weapons are probably going to be more or less the same. It's guns, right? Guns always pretty much have their own profile anyway. But melee weapons, you can do some really interesting things, changing the number of attacks, changing the strength, changing the weapon skill. Should be pretty interesting. As far as what they'll be able to tweak and do, and like for example, maybe with a power fist, it's still going to hit on threes, but we're going to have less attacks because it's bulky. Now, I don't know if they're going to do that or not. I'm just making something up here. But that's something like they could do, which would be an interesting change to me. So, what do you
Yeah.
think, Bob? How do you like this new data sheet?
I like the data sheet because it has a combination feel of a couple different game systems that they've used. Like AOS uses something very similar to this, where their
Hmm.
weapons have the ballistic skill baked in.
Hmm.
You have a roll. That's what it is. Their strength and wounding is also baked in. So I noticed that is not that way for this. So it's a slight difference, but it also is very similar to Kill Team. Kill Team uses very similar data cards as this. So it's a really cool way of having the data sheet. You just select which weapon you have, and you go and it tells you. I also like the fact that the ballistic skill is part of each weapon.
Hmm.
Makes it a little bit easier
Yep.
as far as knowing what you need, simplifies it a little bit. And I hope that they have some sort of rules for the strength where that is going to be simple and easy to roll. I would hope that they kind of did it all the way with the AOS way, because I really kind of like that, the wounding per weapon. But one thing I also like about this data sheet is that they have the special rules all baked in there on the sheet. So what they mentioned was that they're going to be eliminating a lot of stratagems and putting them straight into the datasheet.
Yeah.
So that's going to be huge. So you're still going to
And
have a lot of flavor that way.
yeah, and you look at this, the Termagant's ability here. Skulking Horrors once per turn when an enemy unit ends a normal move, advance, or fall back move within 9 inches of this unit. If this unit is not within engagement range of one or more enemy units, it can make a normal move of up to d6 inches. So basically, they can run away like cockroaches that they are, and sort of like scurry about. You could either get them out of harm's way, or perhaps move them to like screen something that you don't want to charge. So almost like a reaction type thing that what Horus Heresy is utilizing. So I think that's pretty interesting. Be interesting to see what other abilities other units get for that. Something else that I just noticed too, looking at the ranged weapon profiles here, the flesh borer says assault. Now we don't know if that's the assault that we know today, or if it's a different assault. But you'll notice looking down, and I want to say it's probably going to be something a little different, because if you look at the spine fist, it says assault and pistol, and a blast from the past, twin linked. So those of you who played seventh and older will have remembered Twin Linked used to allow you to re-roll the hits. So pretty awesome that that is coming back. They also mentioned Universal Special Rules are coming back. So I think that's a good thing for the most part. Um, because having like three different ways of deep striking within the same army is stupid, because Space Marines pretty much have that. We've got teleport strike, we've got death from above, and there might be one more, I can't remember. So just having those all be just not having to explain what deep strike means to a new player, because it's just a universal rule. What I hope they don't do, and this was something, the reason why I initially was happy that they got rid of the universal special rules in 8th edition, is I hope we don't start nesting rules. And what do I mean by that? Nesting, like, you have rule A, and rule A is comprised of rules B, C, and D, sort of like Space Marines have nested rules right now, and it's
Angels of
just
Death.
Angels of Death. Yeah, it's just overly complicated. Like, don't nest special rules. Just give us the USRs all in a row and leave them unnested, because it would make it um, too complicated, I think. Um, so yeah, what do
Yeah,
you think about the
overall,
USRs coming back?
I like it honestly, and it was kind of funny because I don't remember if it was the Warhammer community article or if they were talking on the stream, but they were kind of joking about how everyone calls things like Feel No Pain, and they're like, "But that's not the rule name." But they're like, they call it Feel No Pain anyway, and I'm like,
Well, because they
"Let's."
never named it. They never. It's the you can ignore a wound on a roll of a 6+ or whatever. Like, they didn't name the rule, so we just had to go with what we knew, which was feel no pain.
Yeah, I don't know how many questions we've answered on the Discord. There's like, "What's Feel No Pain?" And it's
Right?
like,
What's deep strike?
well, it's
Ah,
this. So, I
it's
mean,
yeah,
so it's good because it'll get everyone on the same page again,
yeah.
because really it's the old players that have been using that terminology for a long time. And they're like, you know what? Maybe we should just get back to it because everyone's saying it anyways. No one remembers the fancy lore based rule that you named it. They just
Right.
remember
Feel
Deep
no pain.
Strike.
Yeah, exactly. Something else that they mentioned. I don't know quite how I feel about this. I guess it doesn't really matter much. It's just an interesting thing is, there's no more battlefield role slots.
Yep.
So you're basically going to pick a warlord, and you're going to pick rule of three, whatever units you want to take that fit within your points limit, and that's it. Like, you don't got to worry about troops. You don't got to worry about this or that or whatever. You're just going to take the units that you want, which, I mean, ARCs is kind of like that now anyway. You can kind of pretty much take whatever units you want. You have to have somebody that's compulsory, but
Yep.
to be honest, like, we can make elites compulsory. So it's I don't think it'll be too much different of a feel than it is right now. It'll be interesting to see what they do with troops to sort of give an incentive to take them, because typically, now obviously, like infiltrators right now or incursors right now are going to be takes anyway because they have an ability that's very good. But some other armies that may not really want to take troops because they're not good. Um, what's the incentive that they're going to do? Is it going to be maybe a better OC stat, objective control, or is it going to be some other baked in abilities? I don't know. That remains to be seen. We'll have to see as GW sort of unfolds more stuff in the weeks and months to come.
So one thing I did notice in the stream that they did talk about the troops a little bit, a tiny bit. They did mention that, alluded to that the troops will have a higher OC stat
Oh,
than
okay.
the
Did they
rest of
say that?
them.
I didn't
So
remember that part.
that is something that they did say was going to be the case. So you could see where our Termagant has a 2, uh, but it's, you have a ton of them, but maybe a Space Marine is like a 3 or a 4, whatever, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But it's a troop value. But you could have a Terminator, which we'll get to in a second. A Terminator could have a 1 because it's not a troop, or something to that effect. So the only other thing I think about make add a comment on the force organization chart. I'm not terribly concerned about it going away. I thought it was
Yeah.
a fun thing. I liked it because it kind of made list building more interesting. But they really are kind of trial running us right now with the Arcs of Omen detachment anyway. So
Like I said, it's not really going to be that much different from what we're currently doing, because aside from being capped at 3 for the other two things, because we're pretty much always taking compulsory elites to get 6, and then just being capped at 3 heavy support and 3 um, fast attack and 2 flyers. There's not too much difference. So um, it's it's just a like sort of taking what we have right now and just opening it up a little bit more. Like it's not like a massive departure from what we currently have. It's just even a little bit more freedom than we already have. So
yeah, I feel like they're just getting rid of the redundancies of having open play and match play. Just saying, okay, you can just take whatever.
take whatever. Some people will be very happy to take 3 flyers again. Um, or more than 3 flyers. Hopefully that they are trying to balance them a little bit better, because part of the reason why you can only take 2 flyers is because they were ridiculous. Some of them were really ridiculous. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I guess Space Marines don't have that problem because none of our flyers are very good right now. So hopefully they'll give me a reason to put the Storm Eagle that I have in my shelf back on the table, because I'd really like to, because it's all painted and nice. It's such a beautiful model. So please, GW, give me good Storm Eagle rules. So, so yeah. So you mentioned Terminators.
We get
Those
new ones.
models are dope. They are really, really cool. They kept the classic look while making them look just beefy and much bigger. Something that I thought was very, very interesting, because there's been tons of rumors about Primaris Terminators. Primaris Terminators are coming. Apparently not. Um, I mean, yes, they are technically, I guess, right? Something they said on the stream, and this sort of blew me away that they said this. And I actually really like this. Is they said it doesn't matter if you're firstborn or Primaris. Anyone can earn the right to wear Terminator armor, which means that both firstborn and Primaris fit in the Terminator armor. Don't know how that works. Whatever. I'm willing to hand wave it because it sounds cool, right? So that means that they're going to keep this very classic, very 40k unit alive permanently. Is what I heard basically from that. Because I was kind of going to wonder, eventually there's been a lot of talk. Eventually, firstborn's probably going to go away. It's going to be all Primaris. How does that? What's that going to look like? Are they really going to discard classic units like Terminators? And the answer is no. So that's pretty cool. I really dig it. The models are sick.
Yeah, the only thing that they didn't see on there is you don't see a close combat variant on there, but I assume that that will be forthcoming.
Yeah.
Um, if it's
Hopefully
not
we
in
get
the
some new
initial
lightning
one.
claws.
So, I mean, we've already seen what some of the new lightning claws can look like with
And they look
our
really good. Yeah.
Primaris sword brethren. So,
Hmm.
I mean, we got some cool models that are coming. Obviously, there's some more rumored ones that are potentially out, but we'll see. I'll tell you what, I called this. I called this a year and a half ago, and no one believed me. But they're there now. Being the firstborn and the Primaris, well, it's nice, but I think they're just protecting themselves because they don't want to burn to people too much.
I don't want
Because
people to get mad.
firstborn are going away. Let's just not deny it. They're going away. Let's. I mean, it sucks,
Yeah.
but that's the direction they're going. But they can say it, hand wave it for now, and be like, okay, let's not get rid of everyone yet. But so, I mean, I like the
Yeah.
fact that they kept the style with them. They look very
Mhm.
iconic. They're
Yep. They look really good. And I can't imagine we won't get an assault version in a multi-part kit later on down the road. More than likely, these guys are going to launch with the edition because they previewed the models already. So, um, looking forward to that. The scale of them looks great. Um, I now feel good that I did not spend a whole bunch of money to convert Gravis Marines into Terminators because now I can just buy these dudes. So yeah. Um, so yeah, what else? I'm trying to think what else they talked about.
they did say that all the rules are going to be compatible with like uh, the new Arcs of Omen boarding action stuff. So that's good news there. Uh, they're
Yep.
also talking about the combat patrol. So combat patrol
Yeah.
is you buy the combat patrol box and you use those units, and they're supposedly balanced against each other. So that'll be
Supposedly.
interesting. I don't know as
Well,
if that's the case.
we will. Well, that remains to be seen because there are definitely winners and losers in the realm of combat patrol boxes. Some of them are like, "Woof, that's terrible," and some of them are like, "All right, that's a good box, good set of models." So I guess we'll find out and see how they do it. I mean, they have the opportunity to make these units that are in these boxes good and balanced. So we'll we'll have to see
Yep.
what
Yep.
what they do. Um, they did specifically mention they want to reduce the lethality. We already saw the Termagant data sheet where none of their things have AP anymore. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. They're also changing morale to be battle shock, and they want less models coming off the board due to morale. So that's an interesting change, I think. GW has yet to really get morale right in any edition of this game so far, I think.
Yeah. It'll be interesting how they play with that. But the one thing that they did talk about, I'm a little bit concerned about the new edition with when they're talking about the lethality being down. Yes, it's great to kind of buffer some of those alpha strikes, which I know that they are trying to avoid. That's what they're trying to avoid because it really feels bad when you got the second turn and your army is wide out in the open because whether your mistake or the terrain, and you just get blown off the board by Tau or Imperial Guard or what have you. Or maybe it's the Imperial Guard mortars that they buffed through the roof and you just can't do anything about it, or
Yeah,
whatever it may be. But what that concerns me is they're going to do what they did in 8th edition and jack up the points cost on everything to make up for it. And that's a concern of mine, where you're going to be looking at, instead of 90-point infiltrators or 90-point incursors or 100-point troops units, we're now looking at 200 points because they last longer. So that's my concern. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't have any rumors or anything one way or the other as far as that goes, but that's a concern because they did it in 8th edition when they did the last reset, and I hope that that's not going to be the case this time around. If we can still continue to build and use similar armies as we currently are, I'll be happy. I don't want to get the situation as like where we did this last time around, the last few years, where 8th edition came around and you might as well shelve half the army that you used from 7th edition because you couldn't use it,
Yeah.
and that really
So
sucks.
what the article says, and I don't remember what they said in the stream, but the article says this huge update has also given us the opportunity to look again at lethality and durability across the entire game and rebalance it at a stroke, something we could never do outside of the launch of a new edition. This example will show you what you mean, and then they show the Termagants thing. So, which again, I believe right now, don't Termagants have one of their guns is like AP2 or something like that? Um,
Yeah,
so,
they
you
said that
know,
they're going to be lowering the AP across the board.
they also said that toughness, they're going to expand. There'll be units with toughness higher than 10, which is interesting. You're gonna, it's really gonna, that's another way they're gonna rejigger toughness. You know, if you were used to wounding something on 3s and now you're wounding it on 5s, that's a huge durability boost for that unit. Um, yeah, it will be interesting. We are going to have as much coverage as we can about this. Most of the new information, I think, is probably going to be coming in via their uh, Warcom articles. I don't think we're going to get too many more live event style things. Maybe Warhammer Fest, which is coming up in a month or two, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe someone can correct me. But I think what we're going to try to do is to cover the new stuff, is do either shorts. We can take advantage of YouTube Shorts to do that, to give you guys a quick opinion of what we think on something that drops. Um, of course, if it's large enough, relevant enough for us to make a whole video about it, we will do that as well. Also, our Caffeine and Crusade streams will, of course, talk about anything relevant for that time period as well. So yeah. Any final thoughts, Bob, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think it's cautiously optimistic on what they're going to be doing here. I think it's great that they've honestly, in my opinion, it's a great time to do a reset as far as the game goes. I know it's controversial. I like it. Um, Kind of gets everyone on the same board, where everyone has the same rules that have been tested against everyone. Where right now it's a
For
2 year
now.
delay, 2 year delay on testing everything. So I mean, and I feel like it's going to be easier if, based on what they've currently said, to play test thing. Like maybe you want to update a data sheet, you test it against everything else for all those armies all at the same time, replace it digitally, bam, there you go.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that is a positive for us. As far as the content of the channel, like Alex said, we'll talk about anything that's coming up, because we're kind of in a weird delay space of like a 3 month period of time that it's kind of like, well, we can't really talk about the units anymore because, they're just going to get changed anyway. So we'll probably shift to more
Yeah.
tactical things, bring in some guests. We have a couple of guests that we're probably going to be bringing on and doing some tactical things because that won't change as far as that goes with the edition change because the idea is going to be still the same. So
A
if there's
trade
any
list will be a trade list, whether it's 8th edition, 9th edition, 10th edition. It won't matter. It's going to be the same concept. So those things will be evergreen. Those sort of tactics style things will be evergreen. So yeah. But to your point, like we had talked about doing a tier list because it's been a while since we've done one. Kind of pointless now to do it. We do have our top 10 videos, so you can watch those. Those are pretty much going to stand in for our tier list going forward for that. So yeah. So thanks for joining us tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. What are your thoughts on the new edition? Are you excited? Are you upset? Are you something in between? Mixed feelings? Let us know down in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our Patreon. We have a lot of great things. We've changed our Patreon tiers to include some new stuff. We have new Patreon dice specific that are going to be exclusive for our Patreon members to purchase. Those are coming very soon. We can't wait to unveil those. Those are, of course, from our partner Baron of Dice. So yeah, we've also got an active Discord. Come check us out. We've got lots of things to discuss every day there. A lot of great folks talking Templars and strategy and tips and everything like that. So come on down, check us out, and until next time, keep on crusading.